recording.
Okay.
And did you get the share screen?
Sorry, 1 minute.
Praveen, you are too late. Praveen is supposed to read the prayer.
My 10 o'clock అనుకున్నామయ్యి.
నేను మెసేజ్ పంపించాను కదా
అదే అరగంట అంటే ఐ థాట్ ఓన్లీ సోషలైజింగ్ హాఫ్ అవర్ 10 o'clock ఇస్ మీటింగ్ అనుకున్నా.
సోషలైజింగ్ రాలేదు నువ్వు.
ఏమైనా
సోషలైజింగ్ కూడా రాలేదు.
I'll send you my presentation.
అవును, సోషలైజింగ్ 10 o'clock దాకా అన్నారు. 10 o'clock నుండి స్పీచ్ స్టార్ట్. మీ రూల్స్ రెగ్యులేషన్స్ ఫాలో అవట్లా కరెక్ట్.
సిద్ధు నీకు దబిడి నువ్వు స్కైప్ లో చేస్తుంటే మళ్ళీ జూమ్ పెట్టేవింటి, కన్ఫ్యూజ్ చేసావు అందరినీ.
కదా లాస్ట్ టైం జూమ్ అన్నారు.
లాస్ట్ టైం జూమ్ పెట్టేసి మధ్యలో
I'm fine. I'm just trying to. I'm using my iPad. Okay. And I've never shared my iPad. That's why I'm trying to figure it out. It's not showing me the option to share.
Concentrate on your problem. How to?
I know. No
Let us start.
మై do you have to make him presenter?
Otherwise you.
జూమ్ అది ఇక్కడ. Can everybody mute? Can everybody mute, please? I'm going to mute everybody. If you want to talk, you can unmute and talk, okay?
But ఏం చేయాలి ఇప్పుడు? నాకు కోపం వచ్చేస్తుంది.
Okay, కోపం రాదు కానీ.
Kiran, why don't you send that PowerPoint
to me? I sent it to you.
Okay.
కాదురా, Skype, let me. You have iPhone, iPad?
iPad.
Let me log in and see. See, I am logging in.
Sorry, I seen an option called share screen,
Yeah, share screen అదే.
అది చేస్తే ఇది ఆప్షన్ this program option రావట్లేదు ఎందుకో. This particular program. Okay, so
try now.
Try now? Okay, let me try. I can hear myself.
Share screen వచ్చిందా?
Share screen ఉంది option, but it's not showing the program I want to share. I want to share a
కొంచెం గట్టిగా నొక్కు దీంతో చేత్తో.
మై నువ్వు బాబా గారు లాగా ఎక్కడ పడితే అక్కడ కనబడుతున్నావు. రెండు ఉన్నాయి నీవి.
I know. I'm trying to.
Okay, I have sent Pavan the presentation. Pavan, if you can share your screen, that will be
yes.
Great. Okay, Jai Baba, you got it. Awesome.
Okay, Jai Baba.
Okay. So
అందరూ మ్యూట్ చేసేమా?
Everybody mute, please.
Except me.
Yeah, and Kiran, please give me instructions when to next slide. I'll change. Okay, whenever you can. Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. Ready? Let us start. So thank you, Mai, Amma, everybody, family. Jai Baba. I was never going to volunteer myself, but Ravimai kindly volunteered me, and I think it is last week, and I appreciate that volunteering because in the last week, while I was doing all my other work, the one thing that was playing in the background of my head was, what do I share today, this very moment, which I find myself. So in the beginning, I was thinking, these mixed thoughts around, I want to make this something practical. On the other hand, there is so much literature that was out there when I started doing my initial research that I found that this is a very big area, but of course we have a lot of experience in it. But what it also came down very quickly was that there was, if you look at anger, it's really an offshoot of ego. And I think we spent a little bit of time 2 weeks ago talking about ego. So I called this talk Anger, Ego's Wild Child. Now, through this next few minutes, I want to talk about what is anger, as seen through the eyes of philosophy, as seen through a practical eye, as seen through the eyes of various masters that are, many years old versus more recent. And I want to see how we can learn from it. So that is the intention of this. If I've misrepresented anything, or if I've taken the liberty to say something through my own eyes, then that is my ego coming through. But I do wish that it gets smaller by the end of this talk as well for me. So on that note, let me get started. Pawan, if you can go to the next slide. So let me start off with an extract from the discourses. So what is anger, right? So essentially, if you look at what Baba says in discourses, when you have an ego that is frustrated, then it usually expresses itself through the physical realm, or through the subtle realm, or through the mind, through lust, greed, and anger. So lust is basically the expression in the gross sphere. It's a craving for physical desire. So we talked about desires last week. Now, you can get into a technical discussion of whether a need and a want and a desire, etc. But at the end of the day, a desire is something that is sought by the human body in the case of lust. It's at a very physical level. If you go then to a little more of a subtle level, and there is a craving for power and possession and a desire for that, that becomes an expression of the ego in the subtle sphere. And then, of course, when these desires are not fulfilled, then the ego gets irritated and it wants to desperately fulfill itself. And there are many ways it seeks to do it. And one of those ways is through domination and aggression. And that is where anger starts coming through. And anger is basically, according to Baba, the fumes of this irritated ego. So these fumes further nourish the ego and it becomes a vicious cycle. And this is all in the mind sphere. So this is happening at another realm, which is sort of the more sophisticated level from the gross, subtle mind. So at the end of the day, what Baba says is these fumes need to be managed, mitigated, redirected. And basically, it has to be managed in a way that it limits the nourishment of the ego. So it's basically that vicious cycle that we want to break. So that is what I took away from, and I paraphrase this. This is not exactly what Baba wrote, but I've paraphrased this in my words. So if you go to the next one and look at it through the eyes of another master, the Bhagavad Gita. So this is basically, I've extracted it from Swami Chinmayananda's writings. So this is his view or his expression of through a framework that some of you may have seen. So when Swami Chinmayananda talks about the world of the body, which is like the gross mind, the gross sphere, the mind, which is sort of the emotional sphere in Gita speak, and finally the intellect, which is the intellectual sphere, they are all essentially experiences where the body, mind, and intellect are the subject of the experience. And through certain actions of experience, which is perceiver, perceiving, feeling, and thinking, they experience the objects of experience, which is objects in the physical world or emotions or thoughts. Now, all of this is a very conditioned experience for each of us as individuals. And this is what is referred to as vasanas. And of course, the unconditioned experience is what is referred to as a supreme consciousness, or the unconditioned experience, where everything is experienced in its supreme self. So what is, just a couple of things, and these are verses that come right around where Krishna elucidates the thing around sthita prajna. So this is all in the neighborhood of those verses. So basically verses 62 and 63 basically say that when one is always thinking of objects, whether it be of the body, the mind, or the intellect, the attachment for those objects is born, and from that attachment is born desire, and from desire is born anger. So you see this common themes going through this, right? Basically, you have desire, and from desire that is not fulfilled comes anger. And then, of course, it goes further and says, from anger, if not appropriately managed, comes delusion. And from delusion, there could be a loss of memory. And memory here is not just a memory of thought, but it's all that memory represents in terms of legacy, history, whatever has been constructed in whether it be of physical or of positional power, etc. All of that comes loss of intellect, which then goes further into destruction, which is what we've seen, right? So this is the Gita's treatment, and as you can see, what is seen in Gita, what is seen in discourse, there's a common theme there. So if you go to the next one, Pawan. Sadguru. So then Sadhguru's got many talks around on anger, and so in Sadhguru's words, anger is a very popular thing. People have taken on to it like Coca-Cola, is what he says in one of his talks. But he also says that unfortunately people have chosen it unconsciously. So here comes you start seeing a treatment of anger at a conscious level and unconscious level. So the other point that he makes is that people are mixing anger and intensity. So sometimes there is good side of anger that is talked about, but what he differentiates, he says there's anger and there's intensity. And the point Sadhguru makes is there is a way to be intense without being angry. So the ability to be intense without being angry can have a lot of positive effects. And then he's got a little more of a treatment of karma, vasanas, and samskaras. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I thought I'll add this here because for me, I found it to be a nice explanation. Also, it links to vasanas in Gita and samskaras in Baba literature, right? So karma, essentially, in Sadhguru speak simplified, is every action creates a residue on a person's persona, the personality. Vasana is the residue creates an aura. So all these bits of residues that we collect creates an aura, vasana, smell of that person. So it's a smell we carry, it's a brand we carry, it's it's the aura of ourselves, of each individual. And samskara is those tendencies that are caused by these accumulated vasanas. So basically what Sadhguru is saying is, look, these have to get worked upon, and this residue that you find upon yourself, and I just used some imagery of t-shirt, needs to be washed and cleansed. And the way you do that is first you got to be aware of it, and then you work on cleaning it. So that's just a sort of a summarized take from Sadhguru's talks on anger. Pavan, to the next one. I'm going to have a few questions here, and here's a little quiz. Let us see who shared these pearls of wisdom. So look at the image on the right, a bunch of shells, and people with strong emotions usually hide their heart in a shell for the fear of getting it broken. They hide it so well that love is forgotten and only anger, sadness, jealousy, and fear reign. So you can unmute yourself, and if you want to provide the answer, please do so. Who said this? Who?
Gautam.
No.
Tanvi.
Tanvi.
Tanvi's quote.
Yes. So, I think all of us were enlightened by the beauty of the words that Tanvi shared through her Instagram post yesterday. I personally felt like she, through Gautam and Sridevi, of course, they shared this message in a very timely fashion for me while I had this mind open, trying to understand thing. And so this is so beautiful, and it's really, I think it gives us a lot of pride to see one little child amongst us being able to express with such beauty, such simple words, such deep meaning. So that is our little master Tanvi who shared this, which was just simply beautiful. So anyway, so just moving on from there, the point here is there's hard shells that we have created through our ego, for various reasons, and one of what is born out of there is anger, right? And links back into the whole residue concept too. So if you can go to the next one, Pawan. So then, how does anger manifest? So it's interesting. So it's I got a quote here: "A ball thrown at a wall rebounds with the same force with which you throw it. The wall is always at a standstill. You receive whatever force you use to throw the ball. In conclusion, however I appear to you, it is your own reflection." So who said this?
Mahatma Gandhi.
Say the Prasanna? Meher Baba.
Mahatma Gandhi.
Oh, Mahatma Gandhi. Amma, who said this? Evaru chepparu?
Baba. Baba.
Tanvi.
Meher Baba.
Meher Baba quote, Pavan. That is Meher Baba quote.
Correct. Meher
నేను
Baba.
ఎప్పుడో చెప్పినట్టు గుర్తు కిరణ్, నేను చెప్పింది ఏమన్నా పెట్టావా?
Hey, Sidhu, be serious. Good, Sidhu, no jokes.
It's
Be
okay.
serious.
Yeah.
Kiran, little slow. You go little slow, Kiran. Very
Oh, you
fast.
want me to go a little slow? I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I'll go a little slower. So this is basically a quote from Baba, and I'll just keep that in mind, park it for now, but it's going to come back later in terms of its relevance. But anger, obviously, we all know this. Yes. Hello. Yeah. Anger manifests itself in many ways, whether it be in terms of how we express ourselves, through word, through our own emotions, through violence. Sometimes actually it becomes collective anger. Anger accumulates and builds, and we build on each other's anger. And then this can have many, many different implications and ramifications. So obviously we all know that anger manifests. We've all experienced it. We all have PhDs in anger to different degrees. But I think the challenge, of course, is what do you do with it, right? So if you can go to the next slide, Pawan. So this is where I want to shift from what is anger. So I think I've tried to take a different view of anger, but actually all very aligned. It's desire unfulfilled that leads to anger, with the whole shell of obviously ego. So there's many other emotions. One of the things in anger literature that you see also in the research in psychology, they say anger is never alone. It comes with other emotions. So I'm not getting to all of that, but at the end of the day, when you have anger, it has an impact on the individual, it has an impact on the group, and it has an impact on society. So at the individual level, what do we see? One of the biggest things that we see with anger, and there's a lot of talk around mindfulness, etc., in what I call the Western world, but really it goes back to trying to make sure that the physical and the mental well-being of individuals is not destroyed. So anger has a huge impact on physical and mental health. Decisions made with anger can have financial impact on the individual. The wrong word said or done in the context of anyone's career can have negative effects. And then, of course, the third effect is at the spirit of an individual, right? At the ego level. So we talked about that earlier. But if you look at an individual, you got the impact at the physical level, mental level. You can have it on a financial level, spiritual level. There are many different levels at which anger can have an effect. At a group level, this can start having effects on relationships. So anger held on to can destroy relationships, sometimes at the closest of relationships, fathers and sons and brothers and sisters and, for close friends. Anger is known to have caused a destruction of those relationships, which is obviously, when you look back at it, it's very sad. And so it's something nobody wishes, but it has happened throughout the history. That if you go back and look at it, on all history, not just Indian history, but any Western, Eastern history. Obviously, the financial impact that I talked about, the individual has an economic impact also on societies, or at a group level, on families, or groups of people. It leads to increased separation not just from an emotional relationship level, but it's also about groups breaking up. So there is separation that gets result thing, and of course, all of this leads to non-cooperation. So if you think about human beings, we are not independent entities. We are all interdependent entities, and when you have non-cooperation, it breaks it down. So it takes away from the whole human experience and evolution. So there's a significant impact at the group level, and finally at a societal level. And when I say societal level, this talks about groups, whether it be a religious group or whether it be a national group. We are seeing this in the US right now around racial injustice with the black people. And of course, this leads to various actions of civil disobedience and destruction associated with that. There's economic drift. Again, it leads into the bigger economic impacts. Then you start getting into groupism and tribalism, which the world has moved away from, because in the unification of the world, essentially small groups of individuals which became tribes have become states that have become nations. Similarly, in religious thought and concepts, or political thoughts and concepts. So it gets into the breakdown of that. And finally, of course, wars and conflict. And we've seen that whether it be a physical war or a financial war that happens. So anger can have a huge impact at the individual, group, or societal level. Okay, moving on. So expressions of anger. Now there's many different ways of anger being expressed. We see the expression of anger in little children right from when they are born, or when kids are born. There is anger starts coming through the expression. That's also it links into ego, and as the ego grows and the ego starts identifying with the I, you start seeing anger getting expressed. Then you got anger where, as parents, we see that we get angry with our children. Sometimes it's from a good place of motivation, sometimes not. I think Pawan shared an example about his own expression of anger with Ahan, with two different motivations. One was a larger motivation, one was a smaller motivation. So we see that all around us. Sometimes we as individuals get angry. Sometimes it's for the well-being of the kids. Sometimes it's our own frustration that leads to us getting angry with our near and dear. Of course, there is an anger. Husbands never get angry with their wives, but wives often get angry with their husbands. So that's the third image there. But there is obviously a lot of anger that goes on within relationship beyond the father-son. So there's expression. Then we express anger when we are out in the world through what might be individual small irritations that lead to an accumulation. So driving anger. Then of course, I just shared an image there of anger against racial injustice that we're seeing in the US and finally wars. I know we're talking about India, China right now, but if you just look at the history of humankind, there is a lot of wars that are born out of anger. And so the question is it justified? Is anger justified? And I think the one takeaway for me is anger is a given. Anger will be there. But the question is where the anger is motivated from that causes that anger to be justifiable or not. And now this is of course debatable. And I think if you go back to what Sadhguru said is, if anger is the source of intensity for action, then it does not have to be that. It can be the motivation. But I think the key point to take away is the driving force or the motivation behind the anger coming out of a bigger place. Is it the small ego or a bigger ego? So I think that's what becomes relevant. Actually, in Bhagavad Gita, there is a reference to anger where if there is loss of discrimination or buddhi, or there's nasanam of buddhi, and if this is under the guidance of ahamkara or ego, then anger is considered bad, or that expression of that intensity is considered bad. So I think that's, for me, the takeaway. It is what is the sponsoring or the motivating reason behind that anger, whatever that anger is. So, this is just food for thought. We can talk about it a little bit later. But, when we do get angry, there is one way of, whatever the justification is, one way of diluting it. So if you go to the next slide, Pawan. Anger is pervasive, we know that. But there are things that melt it away. So this is just, the beauty and the purity of innocence, whether it be of a little child or a dog. We've seen this through our lives. Anything pure just dilutes it. So if you think of any dark stain that on that t-shirt, this very quickly sort of washes a good chunk of that away. It just melts it away. So, I think we will, there's a lot to learn from how we own, our own psyches react when we are under the influence of beauty like this, whether it be little Mehramulu or Tikkamulu. So if you go to the next one. So just from now, okay, so let's just shift from, we talked about anger, why anger? Then we talked about, how does anger manifest itself? And then we'll spend a little bit of time, maybe the next 5 minutes or so, on how can we work on, dealing with these fumes of anger, like Baba said, right? So how do we manage these fumes? So, the whole intention is we get angry and we want to get to a better place. We were less angry because of all the benefits associated with it. So really, it's a three-step process, if you will. One is firstly becoming aware of the anger. Do we know when we're angry? Or are we just unconsciously drinking that bottle of Coke, like Sadhguru said? Are we conscious of our when we're angry? So that is the first thing, becoming aware of when we're angry, whether it be a small anger or a big anger. The second step in dealing with these fumes of anger is reflection. And this is where it starts getting from just becoming aware to reflecting on what is triggering that anger. Why am I feeling angry? What is the source of the anger? What is the motivation behind the anger? And just getting a little reflective and thoughtful and contemplative about that. And the third one is where you need to act upon it in some form or fashion. And this is where the concept of sadhana comes through. Are we taking, or am I taking measures to mitigate my anger? And when I say my, it can apply to the individual, it can apply to a group, it can apply to a society. And I think what we see when you have societal action associated with group anger or societal anger, it's exactly those things that are going on, right? All of these different steps. Are you aware of what's going on? Are we reflective enough to learn? And then are we able to act upon it? So just to get to a better place. So those are the three things. I'll spend a little bit of time on each of these, A, B, and C, very quickly. So Pawan, if you go to the next slide. So here in a couple of concepts to take away here. One is I saw this talk with Eckhart Tolle and the Dalai Lama, and very interesting, very simple actually. It's very beautifully expressed. So I've tried to synthesize or distill down what was said in that talk by a from what I watched. Acknowledge the anger. So what Eckhart Tolle says in the talk is, first acknowledge it, the feeling that something is wrong, right? And so, and the recognition of this comes through when you look at the mind. The question is it interpreting some situation, or quite likely misinterpreting some situation? And then he talks about the energy field of anger. And this is what Dalai Lama talks about also, is the energy field of anger flows through your mind. And your thoughts then become a reflection of that energy field. So if you become aware of it, there are ways you can become aware of it. What is your heartbeat like? What is your breath like? What are your thoughts like? What are your possible responses like? So if you can become aware of it, and if you're able to witness it, and you answer to those questions is, yes, I'm aware of it. I'm able to witness it. If you're able to do that, then you have just identified that you're actually separate from your anger, and you are the awareness of the anger. So getting to that awareness is actually a big step in being able to manage anger. The other couple of things that this awareness leads to is there is this concept of anger and the intensity of anger. So think of this: anytime you've gotten intensely angry, the anger can either stay at a level or it can fade away. The hugely intense anger has a certain duration at which it reaches its peak intensity and then comes down. Now, it may not come down to zero. It might stay on at a positive level. But the question is, are you able to arrest the rise? Are you able to watch it? Because if you start watching it and become aware of it, then you can do something about it. And that's the whole idea. So it has a shelf life, and are you able to arrest those fumes that Baba talked about? Okay, so that's I really like this about being separate from your anger. And if you're never an angry person, you're a person that demonstrates anger. So if you go to the next one, Pawan. Buddha. So, how long should we hold on to anger? We talked about shelf life, but sometimes we hold on to anger much longer. So here's a very nice quote from Buddha that I found. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else, but you're the one who's getting burnt all along. So, I think that quote says it all. So beautiful, so simple, so elegant, but so deep. So just going to the next one slide. So next we talked about awareness. So now once you become aware of anger, the next thing is how do you reflect upon it? So you're going one level deeper and saying, okay, what are those triggers? What do I see, etc. So there's a few different practices you can use for reflection. This is just a small thing. I've just summarized these, but there's different techniques of it. But one is just breathing. So if you think about it, anytime you get emotional and there's emotional changes that you're experiencing, if you notice your breath changes, usually it gets shallow and faster. So the breathing techniques actually from millennia ago, the thought is actually the other way. If emotions change your breath, can your breath change your emotions? That is the question. So breathing actually offers that. So a lot of times you see even, as children we're told, or, when you get angry, you say, oh, just count till 10 or take a few deep breaths. I mean, it's really that, right? Can your breath change your emotions? And can you do it in a structured fashion? So you've got techniques like pranayama, etc. There's a lot of breathing techniques associated with it. It all actually goes with the concept of meditation and contemplation. Because then you're actually going into, with breath, taking breath, you calm the mind down, you silence it, and then you start contemplating, and you get sort of to the root cause of what is causing anger. And then, of course, we talked about ego, small ego and big ego. And I think gratitude plays a big part in that. So if you actually sit down and in the process of breathing, meditation, contemplation, you bring in an element of gratitude, whether it be through those exercises or separately where you have a journal. And this has become quite popular where you focus on the gratitude. What are you thankful about? Basically, what you're doing is you're taking your ego and you're zooming out. And suddenly your ego, which seems big, and the same sized ego, when you zoom out, actually it gets much smaller in the bigger context of things. So that is what gratitude allows you to do. And so that's just another technique. So if you go to the next slide, Pawan. Here's an interesting thing. We've been doing Scrabble and wordscapes. I don't know, Manata is on the call, but she's leading on this. But it's interesting. There was one of these circles that came up. And, if you look at the word silent and if you look at the word listen, they actually come out of the same soup of letters. Essentially, the first two steps in dealing with anger are best done in silence, because awareness and reflection are done where you calm the mind down, you get silent, you reach a stillness where things start looking clear. It's like a pond of water. If it's turbulent, then you can't see the bottom of it, and anger lies at the bottom of that pond. But if you let it settle and if there's no turbulence, then it's the dirt and the disruptions and the mobility starts settling down, and then you can start seeing through it. And that's the whole idea of awareness and reflection. Best done in silence and in contemplative reflection. Okay. Going to the next one. Action. Now here's the bits. So interesting. If you look at a lot of the quotes, if you go back to the Baba quote, is remember we talked about anger and how we act upon it. So if we're throwing the ball really hard, it's going to come back at us really hard, right? And we talked about the consequences. So one of the things to do is to actually, the easiest way, it's hard to do, but it's a simple solution, but hard to execute, is just to forgive and forget. Much easier said than done, but that is, at the core of it. And then the other part is to look ahead and beyond. This relates to zooming out. So if you've got a problem, zoom out. Anytime you zoom out, the problems get smaller, the anger feels smaller, and then therein lies just the minimization of that very anger. The next one is a big one: annihilation of the ego. It all relates again, but looking at what is motivating that anger, what is the I in that anger, motivating that anger, I think goes a long way. And of course, service is another one, and this is where the Mother Teresa thought comes out. When you start to serve others, basically you're acting where you're going beyond yourself. And so that's why we see that there is such great love and joy in serving our near and dear. But that comes easily because there is inherent love there. And so the more you can serve others, the greater that is. It takes a huge commitment there. But those are ways of addressing anger. So if you go to the next one, we're coming close to the end of the presentation, so we should have a little bit of time to discuss. Finally, one Baba story. So this is, and some of you may have already read this, but I'll read this story very quickly. Baba visited the site often. On 22nd March 1948, he went there along with Adi Senior, Pendu, Padri, and Goher. Padri was supervising Mahbub's work in fitting the plumbing to a new building. Baba insisted that the work be speedier. So in a teasing mood, Baba remarked to Padri, "Be more careful of the laborers working here. They are being paid and you must get full day's work from them." Padri replied that he was extracting as much work as he could from them. "Then why are you standing around here?" Baba asked. "I've been telling you to complete the work soon. If you continue goofing off, how will it ever be finished?" So Padri stormed off, and within 5 minutes, Baba called him back, repeated the same criticism, and sent him away. Again, after a few minutes, Padri was sent for, and Baba continued with this line of provocation. It happened again and again and again, and Padri, who was now irritated beyond control, said, "If you're going to keep calling me, how am I supposed to get the work done?" Baba replied, "Padri, you have just lost. I was waiting and watching to see if you would get angry, and you did. Is this work less in importance? Is it clear you have not yet learned to control your anger? To be able to control anger is great work. And from now on, be careful of your temper. Do not allow this devil to invade your nut." So in essence, the invasion of anger we see day in and day out, and we've got to be careful that it doesn't invade our own nuts. So each of us is Padri, and the forces of nature, the forces of gods are constantly testing us in this front, and we got to learn to deal with it. Okay, and finally, next slide, Tom. I'm going to wrap this up here. I'm about done. Don't worry, be happy. Jai Baba. So that's all I have. We can maybe open up to reflection.
That is a great talk, Kiran. It's a wonderful, wonderful talk. Everybody should unmute and clap for Kiran for doing this work in spite of his busy schedule. You can have extra wine glass today.
Sure. Seriously.
I see a lot of work going in there. Lot of help from
Pawan, you can stop sharing the screen now.
Yeah. Hi, Ahu.
Yeah, go ahead. Very good. That was a very good, excellent talk. Now we are all angry free. What should we do now?
ఒక్క 2 minutes నాకు ఇస్తే
మాట్లాడు
కొంచెం యాడ్ చేస్తాను.
Yeah. Add చేయండి. Yes.
2 minutes. Okay. Kiran has exhaustively and beautifully presented.
నీ ఫేస్ చూపించండి, నీ వీడియో ఆన్ చేయి.
ఇది ఆన్ చేసే ఉంది.
లేదు, ఆఫ్ అయి ఉంది.
It is on, mine.
నీకు కనపట్లేదు మై రవి మై.
అది ఆన్ చేసాను.
ఎంఈ అంటే ఎవరు ఇక్కడ?
నేను చిన్న
నువ్వా?
మెహర్ ఎర్రబోలు ఎంఎస్ ఎంఈ ఎవరో మరి.
ఎంఎస్ ఎవరు?
Chaddi, we can see you, Chaddi.
చెడ్మై
చెప్పు.
ఇందులోనే చదవాలి నేను. సో
చదువు చంటి.
కిరణ్ చాలా ఎక్సలెంట్గా చెప్పాడు. జస్ట్ నేను చిన్న ఇది యాడ్ చేస్తాను.
షూర్.
Constructive anger. There do come certain situations where love. వింటున్నారా?
వింటున్నా, చెప్పు.
There do
కొంచెం
come-
గట్టిగా మైక్రోఫోన్ దగ్గరికి వచ్చి చదువు చంటి, వినిపించట్లేదు సరిగ్గా.
There do come certain situations when love, persuasion, and other techniques fail to set the things right, or to correct a person, or to get a work done. In such circumstances, if it is felt that manifestation of slight anger or terror will help get the work done or correct the situation, then such an anger is not harmful. In fact, for a balanced person, such an anger is only an outward show. Inside, he remains cool and composed. This can also be termed as artificial anger, in which other persons feel as if you are really angry while you are quite controlled from inside. Does not a drama artist display anger when the script calls for it? How realistic is his pose? But is there any slight trace of anger in his heart? In some situations, you can get the work done from the seriousness of your personality, and in that case, even artificial anger is not required. If you are a man of strong character, you say something seriously is enough to get the other person moving. Your personality, your words, your thoughts, all these have great power. It should be noted that anger and assertiveness are two different things. This is very important. Anger and assertiveness. Anger is your weakness, and assertiveness is your strength. Anger is a breakdown of control, while assertiveness is remaining under full control and dealing with a situation calmly, strongly, and seriously. Anger should pass off the next moment as a wave subsides in the sea. No malice or ill will should be stored in your heart on account of such anger. It should be a momentary outburst of your displeasure. అర్థమైందా మీకు?
ఎస్,
అర్థమైందా?
వెరీ గుడ్ చంటి, వెరీ గుడ్. బాగుంది, చాలా బాగుంది.
Yeah, very good.
మై అసర్టివ్నెస్ గురించి మళ్ళీ చెప్పది. యాంగర్ అండ్ అసర్టివ్నెస్ మళ్ళీ చెప్తారు.
Listen.
Anger, it should be noted that anger and assertiveness are two different things. Anger is your weakness, and assertiveness is your strength. Okay? Mala chadavana? Mala chadavana?
No, that's fine.
బాగా
అక్కర్లేదు,
అర్థమైంది
సరిపోయింది, బాగానే ఉంది.
Anger is సరిపోతుందా?
అర్థమైంది
చదువు మై ఒక్కసారి.
Anger is the breakdown of control, while assertiveness is remaining under full control and dealing with the situation calmly, strongly, and seriously. Anger should pass off the next moment as the wave subsides in the sea. No malice or ill will should be stored in your heart on account of such anger. It should be a momentary outburst of your
ఓకే,
frustration.
నాకు మళ్ళీ వచ్చి నువ్వు చేసుకుని నాకు లాస్ట్ వచ్చి.
After once I do, I sit down.
Hi.
I know
Wait, wait.
so I'll do yours before I do mine.
నీ తర్వాత నాకు చేసి ఇచ్చి. ఓకే,
Yeah. Yours. Dad, I'm not gonna go eat.
నేను చెప్పనా ఒకటి బాబా చెప్పింది.
చెప్పు.
అన్మ్యూట్ చేశానా, వినపడుతుందా?
వినిపిస్తుంది.
Baba said always give in. Okay. Muhammad, when he came as avatar, so when he was going with the Mandali, always they used to humiliate them. So one of his Mandali member, Ali, is a very strong person. He used to get angry. Muhammad used to say, control your anger. To humiliate them, they opposite those whoever bullying them, spitting on them. Spitting in Muslim community is a very bad thing. Ali got so angry, took the knife. Suddenly he remembered what Muhammad said. Immediately went and kissed the opposite person who spat on them. They found lot of change in the opposite party. That is what Baba says, give in. When other people, even though the other person is wrong, you give in. Okay, you are right. Okay. Sometimes if we to control the situation, sometimes we have to show little sternness. You show anger without any hatred in your mind, so is a bad sanskaras won't touch it, because for some good purpose you are showing your anger. So given, Baba says always ego sits in the driving seat. Okay, there should be balance between the mind and the heart. Heart says be good, give in. Mind says, why should I listen? I should take revenge. This sort of conflict will taking place. When we are cultivating slowly, put the ego in the back seat and the heart in the driving seat. That is our sadhana to control our anger. So when sometimes because of a lack of control, we lose our temper. Later we feel so this thing, repent. Why did I say that? Okay. Baba said, live in the present. Don't brood on that. Come on, keep going. And whatever he says, when we remember God's name, we get control on our words. We don't lose temper so easily. At the back of the mind, when we try to say harshly, he will be guiding us. No, be kind to others. This is what I experienced. So in Bhagavad Gita, Abhyasa Vairagya, we say Abhyasa, anything we cultivate, any habit, it will become our part of our system. Okay? That is what Baba said, I am trying to say. Prasanna, you express Prasanna? Prasanna can come on. Ask something, your opinion.
I was just wondering if, Prasanna, if you have to say something, that's fine. But there was something I had in mind after Chandama.
Oh, Mani is there?
Go ahead, Radhika. Go ahead, Radhika.
Radhika, come on.
Please.
No, I was listening to Chantimai after, Kiran, and he spoke about anger and assertiveness. And I think there's two sides of our personality. I mean, these are just thoughts. This is not knowledge. I'm just thinking aloud. One that is the timid, tame side, which needs to be told that we need to be assertive. And the other that has, that is hurt or has ego or whatever it is, that expresses momentarily as anger. And I think we all have both in us. Sometimes we're timid in a situation, sometimes we speak out in a situation. And we are all good at justifying, oh, we are angry because of this, and all of us are culprit to that. But I feel a good way to judge if this anger has been received well by our own body and more importantly by others as well, equally importantly by others as well, is, again, I'm just thinking aloud, is when I'm really angry, and it comes out in a negative connotation, then the energy that I have and what I propagate to others is negative and it agitates. So everyone's angry when if I'm really angry and I burst out and people around me get agitated with it, then that is not a positive kind of anger. It has not been received positively. Your intention or the reason why you're angry may be completely justified, but it has not reached correctly. Whereas if you're assertive, even though momentarily they might feel like, why did they say that, or this thing, but I think assertion coming from a good place and communicated properly will propagate inspiration. It will inspire somebody. So many times when you're working with your, for instance, with my dad, or I'm just telling you because right now that is my day-to-day experience. Sometimes I get very frustrated because he's telling me to do something, and but that assertion, I see it as assertiveness. It is inspiring. So the difference to me between assertion and anger is how it is received by our own body. Because if you're shaking and if you're, we all feel that, right? Then it is not a positive energy for us. And very likely that energy will pass on to our children or whoever it is we are expressing. Most likely it's our family members. That doesn't propagate well, but assertion I think eventually propagates well, and then we'll all sit together and say, he was a strict person, he used to be like this, but it's inspiring. That's all. I don't know if I'm right, I'm just thinking aloud.
Wonderful. Very nice.
One point I would like to bring is what is opposite of anger? If you look at your own mental frame, what is that you're lacking that is causing anger in your mind?
Come again, right? Please.
We get anger, right?
Yeah.
What is that we lack that is causing to outburst in expression of anger?
Voice.
It's expectation, Ravana. It's all about anger. Always relates to an expectation.
Expectation.
Yeah.
Yes, expectation. Yes, and also we have less tolerance and less patience. That's why we are frustrating. If you were to have tolerant to anybody, tolerant to your own family members, if you have patience, if you focus on your building up patience and tolerance, your frustration and your outburst will be a lot lower.
We don't have control on others' mind. We don't have control on others' mind. We can control our mind. See, somebody is rash with us. We don't have control. We can't change them. From our perspective, if our outlook change, in a little peaceful manner, you look at that point, at that whatever incident takes place, okay, there will be some change in the situation of the conflict, whatever it is, conflict or whatever.
Prasanna, what are you saying, Prasanna?
Yeah, anger is like it's an emotional outburst. If your thought behind it is good and it is received well, then it becomes assertiveness. It's inspiring. But at the same time, when it hurts somebody and it uh, it hurts people around and disturbs the atmosphere, then it's real act. The other thing is, supposing a soldier who's going into war, if he does not have anger, he'll fall prey to another soldier whom he's supposed to kill. So such kind of anger is needed, and it inspires him to go and fight the war, or he'll become timid and fearful. He can't fight the war. So anger is needed for you to get inspired internally at times, not always. And that judgment has to be, I think, one needs to practice or become aware of your anger, so you can apply it the way you want it, right? Don't you think a soldier who's not angry, who's just dull, he can't fight his war?
Yeah. I think the question of intensity of anger comes in and buddhi, right? So are you in control of that expression of anger?
That's correct. Like unless and until the captain or anybody, they instigate them, they give them attitudes, tell them, give them anger, use anger into them, so they go and fight. Otherwise,
Some noise is coming. What is the noise?
Can't hear you properly. Very noisy.
Very noisy. Somebody.
Can
so some
everybody else mute while just when you
yeah.
talk, then unmute and talk, and then immediately
Okay.
mute. Now it's
And,
good.
yeah. Now, am I clear? A soldier who is angry has to fight the war. So he needs to be angry to get himself inspired, and he has to go do a killing. He has to kill somebody. Otherwise, he'll fall prey, and he won't be doing this duty. So, is it good or bad? Is he carrying good sanskaras or bad sanskaras? Are we to think about it that way, or do we have to be timid,
Let's
control
not
our anger?
let's not go into broader field that confuses us. Let's confine ourselves.
It's only anger.
Good anger versus actual anger. Okay, good anger is that you act but you don't have anything emotion inside your heart. That you are acting.
No,
That
you're
is
calling
good anger.
it the same
What is
as
the anger is inside your boiling, inside your frustrating, inside your blood pressure is raising. That is the anger we are talking about.
Prasanna, here Baba in war, no. Baba said when a soldier is fighting for his country, there is a magnanimous thing for his saving his country is fighting, not personal anger. Okay. Baba very clearly told, no go bad sanskaras will touch you. Suppose some soldiers died in Chinese 2 days back. They died for the sake of the country. Okay, not personal anger.
So
this is very clearly Baba told.
See,
in
once
war.
the anger comes out, your intelligence is completely clouded. You don't have any more discrimination capability. You are completely under the influence of anger. So anger is not good for us.
So if I say, like, see, this is only for discussion. I'm not against anybody or anything. If I say that the Chinese are bad, like I say because of the economic things and COVID, I say Chinese are bad. But after all, they're also humans, right? They're also human beings, right? But I develop a kind of aversion to them because they're doing, they're sending us COVID and they're doing all this. nonsense. You get your
That's
anger
because you're associating with India and they did something to India, our soldiers.
from
See
even
that my consciousness is playing a role in your anger here.
I didn't get you my.
You are associating with the country, my India. Our soldiers are being killed. So they and us, that issue is playing in your mind, in our mind, I should say. That is
The
why
same
we're getting
thing,
angry about them.
same thing is going to the mind of a soldier, right? Who's trying to protect it.
No, that is
That's
his
patriotism.
duty. It is part of his duty. See,
So is
unless he
your
has anger, he cannot go and fight fiercely. Battlefield.
okay, that soldier is fine. You are having a kind of
It's a duty.
anger because of your patriotism, I say. You're a patriot. You're living in this country. So you're, destined to have anger.
Duty is
Yes.
different from anger.
This is
No,
not
as a
duty.
duty,
This
you
is a
must have
feeling.
anger. It is
Soldier.
driving.
Khan, if you
That
think of
is a
Arjuna, same thing, right? If you think of Arjuna, he was going through the same thoughts.
True, that's what, yeah. Bhagavad Gita says the same thing.
Same thing. So Bhagavad Gita also says the loss of buddhi, right?
Yeah.
So the discrimination power in doing any action, what is the motivation? So in that case, it's not anger because it's something bigger than that. Now, is there an emotion? Is there intensity associated with? Yes. Is it being directed in a aggressive way through war, non-violence versus violence? Yes. But the motivation there is bigger than Arjuna. It's bigger than the Pandavas. It's bigger than the smaller thing versus a bigger thing. And that's what the driver is. And so for me, that expression or the soldier's activity in war is not anger. But I see your point. There is an intensity of motivation that is desired for that soldier, whether it be Arjuna or the Jawan, right? To be able to express in that field of war. That is most beneficial for the purpose behind it. So now, when there is loss of life around, etc., it can trigger anger, right? And if it leads to loss of discrimination, that's when it can have negative effects. But
it can harm the whole country, like the whole the soldier's anger, because he did something out of anger, can actually hurt the country if it is not directed in the correct way.
anyway, but I think we all agree to that, right? I think the soldier's thing is like
Personal anger.
Arjuna, personal anger versus a bigger motivation. I think is the point. No?
we can't change the
Anger hurts
destination
us. Anger,
in the countries.
personal anger, our weakness, it hurts in every respect. It
You're,
only
you're always
gives
saying,
temporary satisfaction to the mind. That's it. But it hurts. We suffer too.
no, we're always saying anger is bad, but I'm just looking at the other side of it.
Not
Anger is
bad,
good in
Prasanna.
certain ways.
Controlling your
In
child
negative side. Negative
is
side.
not bad.
Negative.
Controlling your child, showing your anger. Teacher talks nicely in the beginning. Second time he won't listen. The child he shows the stick. Samadhana dandopayalu. Okay. So anger is not always bad. If you have
Yeah, this was
hatred,
another
revenge
example. Yeah.
in your mind, anger is bad. If you are in a good sense to think of the child for your good behavior, if you admonish, is not anger. Like double-edged knife, both sides. As it
See, if
happens,
you all look at your own experiences of anger, you all expressed anger personally as well as for the benefit of your children. Okay? If you look at how many times you got angry to help your children versus how many times you got angry because something kicked you off, there's a big difference, right? Big difference in how you experience that anger. Helping others, you're always in control of the anger. Showing the weakness, you are showing your anger, actual anger. No tolerance, no patience, nothing.
Right. So what you say is like anger with negative emotions or bad thoughts is not right. So you have to control yourself, right? Is that what is?
No. First, initially, we have to control, but we have to get an understanding of about this anger. Then you will be able to use the anger in a right way. Understanding is more important than control. నీకు లోపల ఓ ఉడికిపోతా కంట్రోల్ చేసుకున్నావు అనుకో, you are the one who is going to suffer more. So we have to have understanding,
So you're
clear
holding the
understanding
core.
of anger.
As Kiran said, you're holding the core, holding yourself, right?
Buddha.
Buddha said.
Spirituality. Bring spirituality in your day-to-day life. That will
Okay.
help you.
Pawan, your
Pawan cheppu.
take on it. Your take on it.
నేను ఏమనుకుంటానంటే, see, we are spending a lot of time on the definition of anger and whether this is right or wrong. We all know anger. If you just take it very simply, when I sweat and I'm feeling uneasy, then that's an anger coming from a wrong place. Sometimes I try to get angry. I don't feel tense after that. I dish out that anger and live my life very peacefully. So that is coming from a more constructive, like what Chantimai spoke about, constructive anger. So it's there in our hearts. When I lost my control, I am uneasy on one. Okay, I'm uneasy about it. It's still playing in my mind. There's a discomfort. But when I choose, right now he's testing my patience right now. But that's a separate practicals also is happening for me right now besides theory. But what I'm saying is, when I choose to get angry with him, I'll scold him and I've forgotten about it. I don't feel guilty. Sometimes I feel guilty because I lost control. But when I don't feel guilty, when I feel clear in my mind, I dished out what I had to do as a parent, it's okay. I think I was trying to reflect more, and what Kiran spoke about, two things came out very well. One was based on his slide on, sorry, Amma is going to say no jokes, Karim. Gautam is not challenging at all. The Tanvi slide bettaka, I think Gautam is very quiet. You kept him very, very quiet. He's not challenging. Every day we have to put, whoever is presenting should put something, Gautami. Just a joke, sorry. But more seriously, I think from a solution standpoint is what I'll try to talk a little bit about. How do we apply it in our day-to-day life? How can we are all got big, thick resumes of anger. We are all very good, high work experience in the field of anger. Everyone is experienced. There's no need for any doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. How do we apply it and how do we reduce? And what appealed to me in Kiran's presentation, and from whatever Baba's sayings he spoke about, and whatever I have read about, is to kind of, as much as possible, distance ourselves from that feeling. Ante, let us say some trigger point has happened. I love the structure, by the way, Kiran, of acknowledge, awareness, reflection, and then action. But trigger point ochindi, I'm getting angry. Okay, I'm getting angry at that stage. Then to first distance myself, saying these are my thoughts and I am not my thoughts. First point, okay, as one point. Second point, these thoughts are now triggering off an anger, okay, and I am not that anger. Okay, point number two. Point number three, and going back, a different Eckhart Tolle says this, is that don't judge that anger. We are all human beings. Don't say, oh, why am I feeling so terrible? I'm getting angry. I am getting angry. Just look at it as a third person. Right now, Train Pavan is getting angry right now. That is itself the awareness and the acknowledgement. It cools off. The chances of cooling off becomes higher. Okay, so that is one reflection. Second point, last point is, what if we already got angry and now I'm feeling guilty in that situation? And many times it happens. When I lose my temper in the office situation or even in the home situation, after I've done that and then I'm alone, then I'm feeling extremely guilty and heart is heavy, mind is heavy and matter. During that time, I just try to be gentle with myself, saying that, yes, I got angry. I lost the control. We have to try to not get angry with ourselves for getting angry, basically, be gentle with ourselves and accept that we are human beings. We are going to make errors and slow down a bit. Sorry, that's my points, key points.
That's with Prasanna's point. Prasanna, what was Prasanna saying was to hold on to
Come closer and talk. Come closer to us.
Yeah. What I found was in Kiran's presentation, the best solution to anger management is being aware of it.
So you know this thing, like you know that you get angry at a particular point of time, and you know that you should not build up your anger, but you try to control it. But as long as you are aware of it, I mean, it causes a temporary conflict, but after that, peace reigns in. Okay, so constantly being aware of your anger, that is even within you, helps slowly in dissipating the anger itself. So understanding the and yeah, the other points are there. Understanding the source of anger, being away from it, not being involved as a part of it, that is a point. But all these things come from being your awareness of the conflict that is arising within you. So yeah, anger. So every emotion, anger, desire, everything has a smaller one, has a bigger one, has a smaller perspective, and has a bigger perspective. All these emotions carry that baggage is always there. So be aware at what point you have to really constantly being aware is my take home point from Kiran's speech. That part I liked very much.
Hey, Gautam, I have a question for you. So we come across some people that they're always angry with something or other. Their face looks angry, and anything you say, they are angry. So what happens to our health if you are continuously angry?
So anger is like two parts. Like once in a fit of rage, you burst out yourself, and there is a continuous part where you keep on that anger turns into hate, and that hate keeps on developing within you as a long chronically it keeps up building upon you. Suddenly, when the anger comes in a rise, obviously your hormones like the adrenaline, noradrenaline kick up. That's why చాలా మంది చూస్తూ ఉంటాం. In a fit of rage, they get this heart attacks and stuff like that. Okay, and even in the chronic stage, you are supposed to have all this inflammatory hormones like cortisol and all tend to swell up. And these hormones are supposed not to be very good for your health. The sugars hike up, the BP goes up, everything becomes uncontrolled. So these are the physical problems with your sudden anger and chronically being angry.
Very good. Bhai, let's ask Bhai if he wants to say something. Bhai, unmute చేసి మాట్లాడు Bhai.
Naveen,
Tanuja.
Tell your
Anu?
expression.
హలో
చెప్పు Bhai.
చెప్పు.
ఏం లేదు, కోపం అంటూ వచ్చిందంటే ఇప్పుడు 2 టైప్స్, పర్సనల్, ఇంపర్సనల్. వాళ్ళు వాళ్ళ మీద పర్సనల్ గా వార్ చేసేటప్పుడు వాళ్ళు పర్సనల్ గా ఉండదు. దే వాంట్ టు సేవ్ ది కంట్రీ. వేరే ఇండివిజువల్ గా ఏ మర్డర్ చేసే డబ్బు తీసుకుందాం ఏమైనా పర్సనల్ దేనిగా ఏమైనా ఉంటే దట్ ఈస్ రాంగ్. అంచే సాధారణంగా యుద్ధం అనేది చైనా వాడేమని లేకపోతే ఇండియా వాడేమని, దే ఆర్ ఫైటింగ్ ఫర్ దేర్ కంట్రీ, నాట్ ఫర్ సెల్ఫ్. వాళ్ళు పర్సనల్ గా ఏమీ ఉండదు, కోపం ఉండి కాదు. అంచేత దట్ ఈస్ డిఫరెంట్, దిస్ ఈస్ డిఫరెంట్. కోపం అది
బ్యాటిల్ ఫీల్డ్ లో
బ్యాటిల్ ఫీల్డ్ లో పర్సనల్ గా ఉండదు.
చైనీస్
నువ్వు బ్యాటిల్ ఫీల్డ్
చండమాయ మాట్లాడు, ప్రసన్న ఉండి ప్రసన్న చండమాయ ఏదో మాట్లాడు.
Chinese soldiers are attacking our. Suddenly they started attacking our Indian.
Tanuja.
Everybody mute, please. Everybody mute. ఓకే చంటి వినపడలేదు. చంటి నువ్వేం మాట్లాడుతున్నావు?
ఇప్పుడు బ్యాటిల్ ఫీల్డ్ లో 2 days back Chinese soldiers suddenly unexpectedly they started attacking most unexpectedly. Then our people have to retort, isn't it? They have to fight with them and kill them with some. There must be an killer instinct they should have. Unless they have that, they can't win. See, actually 20 soldiers were killed. Actually, on the other side, 43 were killed actually. as per the some reliable sources. మరి battlefield లో కూడా if the soldier cannot have that anger or that this thing killer instinct, how can they fight the war? He should have the anger. He should have that killer instinct.
Right. Okay. The other thing is, we are all patriots, right?
No. I am not a
No, we are all.
patriot.
No.
No.
Okay, whatever.
No. Patriotism is
It's
not a virtue only.
No. I'm not talking about. We are patriots in the sense you all love your country, India, right? Or you're an American or whatever, wherever you like your country. Okay, somebody from your country is fighting with a different country. Okay, war ankondo. Now, if you get angry about the country who's invading you or killing your soldiers, your anger, is it right? Is it the same as? I mean, you're justified, right? Getting angry.
అవన్నీ national issues. We don't have control to solve those problems. What is day-to-day anger, how to react, spontaneous feeling. That is how we control our anger. National issues we don't have control. Okay?
గీత నీ ఫోన్ తిప్పి గీత నీ కాళ్ళు కనిపిస్తున్నాయి.
కాళ్ళు
గజ్జెలు అనే పాట గుర్తొస్తుంది.
దాని మళ్ళీ
కాదు గౌరవ్
నువ్వు కనపట్లేదు.
కాళ్ళు కొంచెం కాళ్ళకి ఇది ఏమైనా రాసుకోవాలి, నూనె ఏమైనా రాసుకో. డ్రైనస్ సారీ.
ఓకే,
మ్యూట్ లో మాట్లాడుతున్నావా నువ్వు?
ప్రవీణ్ తనుజ మాట్లాడాలి. గివ్ దెమ్ a turn to talk about the issue, on the main issue what Kiran spoke.
Anger.
Come on. Tanu speak, Tanu.
Tanu.
Yeah.
Tanu,
Okay.
Naveen, Praveen.
Okay, నాకేమనిపిస్తుంది అంటే
Sure, everybody mute. Tanu is talking. Tanu, go ahead.
యాంగర్ అనేది మనం అవాయిడ్ చేయలేని ఇమోషన్, రైట్? సో being aware or becoming aware of that anger is the first step. మనం ఎప్పుడైతే మనం ఒక సిచ్యువేషన్ లో యాంగర్ అంటే ఆ కోపం ఏదైతే వస్తుందో, ఇఫ్ యు బికమ్ అవేర్, అక్కడే ఆ ఇంటెన్సిటీ ఆఫ్ యాంగర్ తగ్గిపోతుంది. వాట్ ఐ ఫీల్ నాకంటే, అండ్ దిస్ రిక్వైర్స్ లిటిల్ సాధన. అంటే ఒకసారి ఈ సెషన్ లో మనం ఇది నేర్చేసుకుని ఒకసారి నెక్స్ట్ టైం I'll try to become aware and English. Okay, Ata. So becoming aware of this emotion, anger, requires little sadhana. Sometimes, even if we try to control, it goes out of hand. Manu, we react uncontrollably. We react, and what we do in that situation? What I personally do is, I ask Baba to forgive me. As soon as I become aware that I have lost my control, or I have been very harsh to the other person, I realize it later, not at that particular moment. I burst out everything. Anta అయిపోయిన తర్వాత I realize, తర్వాత what can I do? ఏం చేయగలం? What can we do? For that, what I do is, I ask Baba to forgive me. That's it. So that reduces a guilt feeling edaithe undo, whatever guilt feeling we get out of that situation of being harsh to others. So asking Baba for forgiveness, it personally reduces my this thing. Jai Baba. And Prasanna, do want to know kada what you're saying about this patriotism kani Adi, we don't have any personal anger, Prasanna. If in particular this fellow, particular Chinese మీద అట్లా ఏమీ కాదు కదా. The whole nation. A personal anger లేనప్పుడు I think it does not affect us personally అంటే ఒక particular person, but it's not directed towards any particular person. As a nation, we are reacting. as a citizen of a country, we are reacting. సో దానివల్ల బ్యాడ్ సంస్కారాస్ అంత ఎంత ఇంటెన్స్ గా ఫామ్ అవుతాయి అనేది ఐ డోంట్ నో, బట్ దట్స్ హౌ ఇట్స్ నాట్ పర్సనల్ యాంగర్ కాబట్టి ద ఇంటెన్సిటీ ఆఫ్ ద సంస్కారాస్ డ్యూ టు దట్ యాంగర్ ఇస్ నాట్ సో సివియర్ అనుకుంటున్నా.
Yes, Religion Humanity, Baba wrote clearly. Next,
So
Naveen.
basically the soldiers they are doing that.
Tanu, talk.
It's like this basically doing their duty, ante.
Yes. Yes, Baba very clearly told in the war, no, about the war. This is national pride, ego, national ego. No hatred. Okay,
Yes.
next, Naveen, Praveen.
Naveen, what do you want to say?
Sidhu.
Naveen,
Only on the topic.
Praveen,
Unmute. Naveen, unmute Jay. Naveen, you're on mute.
Sorry. Okay, my turn. So from what I got from Kiran's presentation,
గట్టిగా మాట్లాడు నవీన్, గట్టిగా మాట్లాడు.
so what I perceived from what Kiran in his presentation, the main thing is when any individual gets anger, right? So we have one thought process, okay? So something disturbs you, right? The bottom line is the expectation of, okay, what is that the other side of thing needs to happen to make you happy, right? So then we quickly come into judgment, okay, I'm agitated at this point, I don't have any option, this is the option, then you get disturbed pretty quickly. Simple example, right? Pawan just mentioned that he's in the process of getting angry on Ahan, right? So his expectation of Ahan doing things is against his wish or will, right? So when we take step back, when what Kiran mentioned, when you step back, like looks at a bird's eye view, that problem becomes smaller, right?
Yeah.
Because at that time you're giving yourself time to justify the anger. So time is the essence for the anger to get better, in a positive way, right? At that point, what you do is, when you're yelling at somebody because of anger, you are giving him some options. Why I'm angry at you, like, if you do this, these are the options, right? That duration of thought process, your anger will get subdued. Okay, it won't get as much agitated. Like, your anger comes very instantly because you are not looking at other options. So that perspective of taking a step back, okay, digest what you are doing, is very tough for a human being, because everybody is different. I mean, Kiran is different, Pawan is different, I am different. It's all instance, right? So there's no recommendation like this is the right way of doing it, right way to attack it. But the best way is like, to step back and say, hey, when I'm angry at something, why am I angry? What are the other options can I give? And it's again the same example of like, Meher or Rahan or like Tikka or whatever, right? So they must be thinking, kids, anybody on the other side, they may be thinking they are doing it right. Okay, we have limited experience. Our parents have more experience, right? Atta may be thinking like, Pawan and Kiran should be this way, right? And her expectations are different than how Kiran and Pawan should be. And Amma should be thinking differently. But hey, Naveen, you should do this. Your blood pressure will go up. She gets angry, right? I think I have my own experience. Now I'm 48 years old guy. I have my expectations. So bottom line, the key is the expectation of the other individual angry with, or other system you're with, right? Whether it's a war or is it like India, China, it's about expectation. You think you always think we have experience the other person you're angry with. So how do you control that? Is it the best thing?
Expectation, Naveen, expectation means I want it to happen my way. That is the expectation. That is being selfish anamata. But the world is not selfish. Kada?
I don't know it's selfish, but it's just
Ego.
Maybe for a good cause. Anger may be for a good cause, right? Because some people will not listen with one kind of wording, right? I mean, Pawan will say to Ahan, hey, Ahan, just do this. With Meher, he say, Meher, do this. He'll say, no, right? So at that point, anger is going inside. He may not display it in front of Meher because being a good dad, But the bottom line is it's all about expectation. But end of the day, we got to believe that kids are doing what they're supposed to do. But again, that's a simple example. But you can just take it to another level with your colleagues, with your wife. You know how many times we just keep ourselves inside so that we don't want to come out that easily, right? Eventually you'll burst out. But are you not angry for that period of time? Yes, you're angry inside within you, but not you didn't burst out or expose yourself to the other individual or other system, right? So okay, from Kiran's point, that three things, I don't know what he put in, but being angry to happy, there are three levels he put in, right? So that's you don't propagate that to the other individual. Actually, you got to propagate within you to make the end goal, to be happy. That's the way I look at it from a bigger picture. You always step back when you're angry and look at from other guy's perspective, whom you are angry with, or whether with China or with a kid or anybody, right? That's the way I read his presentation from the biggest point of view, like a bird's eye view. There's a good presentation, Kiran. I mean,
వెరీ గుడ్
with a very high.
ప్రవీణ్ ఎక్కడున్నాడు? వెళ్ళిపోయాడా?
చిప్స్ చిప్స్ తింటున్నాడు.
చిప్స్ తింటున్నాడా?
సిద్ధు
సిద్ధు కూడా తింటున్నాడా చిప్స్? సిద్ధు చెప్పు.
ఎక్కడున్నాడు? తమ్ముడు ఉన్నాడా?
ఉన్నా వింటున్నా.
చెప్పు, చెప్పు సీరియస్ గా.
ఏం చెప్పాను అత్త, వింటున్నాను.
విన్నావులే. వాట్ ఈస్ యువర్ బాటమ్ లైన్? వాట్ యు వాంట్ టు సే?
ఏం లేదత్త, అంత బాగుంది. బాగుంది కిరణ్, ప్రెజెంటేషన్ చాలా బాగుంది.
But what I feel, we should have spiritual bent of mind. Naveen said no. When some incident happened, take one step back. Okay. What Baba says, give in. Shri Sai Baba says, Saburi Shraddha. Saburi means patience. These are all we have to cultivate in our day-to-day life. 10 years back, our personality is different. Now we improved a lot comparing the 10 years or 20 years back, right? We have to cultivate these spiritual qualities in day-to-day life with the help of our Guru, Meher Baba, Shri Sai Baba, Krishna, Rama, whichever name we choose. Okay? God will help us. That is my bottom line. Radhika,
okay, Praveen,
you want to say
something?
Radhika.
We will close, coming to the close.
Ask Radhika
Praveen.
what she wants to say.
Radhika మాట్లాడుతుందా?
Radhika went to the Vedikadike.
Okay. So
Praveen.
Few sentences and one little story I've heard about anger. So the few words ఏంటంటే, it's a degrees of losing control of oneself over self. It's egocentric is anger. I don't know that a soldier has anger. I don't think they have anger. They have a sense of dedication. They have a sense of responsibility. It's a duty that they do. They go and fight for the country. There is a purpose that they go and fight for. Losing self, so there is no place for anger. The actions could be aggressive and killing other people, but that's not coming out of anger, because that comes out of strategy and deep thinking, right? Then the other thing that I have, a story that I kind of stuck with me was Anna Hazare in his village would punish. Anna Hazare in his village, he would punish people by tying them to the tree and whipping them if they come drunk, right? So if anyone in the village drinks, he would tie the person to the tree and whip them. And then someone in the interview asked him, isn't that wrong? You're showing aggressive behavior and it's punishment and it looks wrong. You're not the authority or anything. He said, you can do that only if you become the mother of the person. You punish only if you become the mother. Show that love. If you have the love, then you have the eligibility to punish. If you do not have that love, you don't have the authority to punish anyone. So there is a slight difference between anger and assertiveness. That's why I was very, very curious on what Santimai was saying about assertiveness, right? And Kiran Manchiga, it actually broke down the whole anger, the concept of anger into very clear chunks, so we can all understand. But definitely, we have to be all assertive. In my mind, I am assertive. In terms of always, I keep in mind is I need to take out that self, or I need to take out my self interests, and then say things. Otherwise, I think Radhika was trying to explain this. Like there is the timid side, and then there is the aggressive side of us, right? We need to be somewhere in between. We need to make we can be timid all the time in the name of God and peace and Buddhism or Buddha, whatever that is, right? Peace. We need to actually show some assertiveness, but that assertiveness only comes with taking out self and putting selflessness, and then I think the message will be passed.
Very good. I think everybody told the opinions. We will continue. Whoever wants to continue will continue. But next week we will continue with our Tata's book by Meher Baba. And the following week we'll have another topic. And Kiran, you're still anxious to present any more? Kiran, you're still anxious to present more talks? No, just a joke, okay? Anybody wants to bring out any other emotion, problems we have and talk about it? Volunteers?
Prasanna is selling, he will say
everybody.
okay. And now you are telling nobody is opening their
ఏంట్రా అక్కనే ఏమన్నా హైర్ చేసావా ఏంటి వాలంటరీ
కాదు, కనపడుతుంది.
చెప్పమని చెప్పావా ఏదో అనిపిస్తుంది
కళ్ళు కనపడుతున్నాయి. నేను అంటున్నాడు, నీకు కనపడుతుందా?
నేను అంటున్నావా?
నేను
చేస్తాడండి. వర్రీ మీద వర్రీ కానీ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ కానీ.
Let him decide what he wants to present.
What are the issues we need to let's make up a list. What is the topic we want to talk? Let's select.
He will tell Pavan, Prasanna, you decide and tell what topic you want. Later also you can tell. Right now,
okay.
Let him think. Okay.
Anxiety. We can talk about anxiety. My vote for anxiety. Anybody else?
Discourses. We are taking discourses.
Worry. I suggest worry.
Worry. Okay.
Because
worry,
anxiety and worry go together.
And let him decide, Ravi. Domination is one of
the
qualities of the ego.
We are going by democratic way. Worry.
Domination.
Let him. Jai Baba. I am leaving. Jai Baba.
What is your vote, Gita? What do you want to discuss, Gita? What do you want to discuss?
No, domination. Domination is the quality of the ego. Let him decide from the discourses. Let him
Gita,
decide.
what do you want to talk, Gita? What do you want to talk?
I don't have skills, Baba, like you people. I am only.
That's okay. You don't have to talk.
Now
but what is the subject? Gita, what is the subject you want to talk?
I don't have skills.
Okay.
Of talking.
No. You don't have to talk. What is the subject you want to
discuss? What is the topic of discussion?
Chapana? Qualities of an aspirant. If I talk, qualities of an aspirant.
Qualities of an aspirant. Okay, next one, Pavan.